gentlemen, and disappointments. We are coming to you live from the Woman Caves in New York and Connecticut. My name is Leslie.
And my name is Melissa.
And we are verbally disastrous. I jumped into a different job with a totally different vibe the next day. There was a good Larry and a bad Larry on the job site. Good Larry was a kind man, was willing to show me how to do tasks, and somewhat low-key. Bad Larry was uptight, rough around the edges, and quick to bark at me if I didn't do a task exactly how he wanted. Often, I didn't have a choice and had to work with Bad Larry. I wasn't on my game since it was right when my husband died. Admittedly, I showed up very late to work and heavily distracted in this fog for a few months after the incident. For a few months after the accident, I would come in late and be sat down until the next hour struck. I recognize now that that was tough love. At the time, I believed that I felt like I was being punished for my struggle. Bad Larry used to tell me that I will never make it in this business. He threatened to write to the apprentice director a letter and get me thrown out of the union. He goes on to torment me and say that I should just cut my losses and let go of the house and move back to Oregon. This embarrassing rant would go on while we're all sitting at coffee break. I absolutely refused to take the bait and get emotional. Bad Larry was a moody guy. At times he was super critical, and then he would be kind. I would actually get rattled when he would give any form of compliment, much less show kindness to me. Whenever it happened, I knew some negative rant was soon to follow. It was really hard to deal with a roller coaster of moods. This was amplified when I was under stress and very tired from the long hours. The more he would get critical and yell at me, the more nervous he made me. One day I snapped and yelled right back at him. He tried yelling at me to pack up my tools and go home for the rest of the day. I packed up and went crying to where Good Larry was working. I asked him if I could work with him for the rest of the day, and he took me under his wing. I was on that job for almost a year until it wrapped up. I crossed paths with Bad Larry years later. He was very happy to see me, and I was cordial. I learned he lost his house and got divorced. I still have my house to this day until I sell it to my son. Life sure works in mysterious ways. Be careful with that negative energy that you send out to other people, that it doesn't come right back to you. I moved on to the largest job I have been on to date. There were hundreds of different trades on the job site since it was a brand new building called a deck job. There were at least 200 electricians alone on the job site. As an apprentice, you have to get the coffee order for the entire crew. That process would literally take 2 to 3 hours each morning. I used to actually make money off the task, and that helped me so much. I think I used to make $50 a day on getting coffee from tips. This work climate was so different from any experiences to date. I worked a bunch of overtime on this job. That was so helpful for my situation. By this point, the guys in my apprentice class started warming up and actually started talking to me. My classmate, who sat either on my left or right, had a heavy Jamaican accent. He would respond to the question in class, and I would interpret for the instructor when he would stare at him like he didn't know what he said. It became a regular thing. I would do that after the initial laughs. The guy who sat on the other side of me was a huge party guy who copied off of me during every exam in class. It got to the point that during break, he would buy me food and drink to show his appreciation. It was during my 3rd and 4th year of my apprenticeship that I became no longer invisible. I then started getting invited to go to the bar with the entire class. I told them I needed to know well in advance so that I could make arrangements with daycare and the second job. To my surprise, I started hitting the strip clubs with them all as well once a year. The guys picked up the tab since it was an expense that I could not afford, nor would I even go there if it wasn't for my classmates. I moved on from the deck job a year later and then stayed in a small shop for about 2 years. For a woman to last that long in a shop is pretty damn good. I encountered some interesting characters during that time in that shop. I did write about my crazy coworker antics more in depth in my book, hashtag Construction Tales. There is one particular character, his name is Chester, and I've changed all the names of my coworkers to protect the innocent, who had absolutely no filter in his mouth. It is often felt like it was Chester's life mission to torment anyone and everyone around him. He most definitely challenged me upon our initial greeting. After I did my signature hard handshake, he said to me, "There are two things. There's no crying in baseball and no women in construction." I brushed off the comment and didn't allow any sign of emotion. This was the point where I needed to do a lot of brushing off the bad jokes and offer humor in order to mentally survive. I moved on to a shop that felt like it was a good fit since the crew was very warm and willing to teach me. Additionally, they had a general forewoman in the shop. The problem was that I had to go and do residential type work for my last 18 months, so I had to leave. I enjoyed learning how to install audio-visual racks and projection screens during what is known as my MIJ period, that is the last 18 months of my apprenticeship. I worked with a really good crew. Looking back, the hardest part was leaving each shop, not because I got emotional or missed anyone. It was because I dealt with a fresh batch of new faces to work with and prove myself all over again. It is not until you have been in a few years where you build a good reputation and it precedes you to where you don't feel like you have to start from scratch each time. I was a forward thinker during my apprentice years. I thought about my reputation in both the work manner and as a woman amongst a pool of men. I felt like it was important to try to avoid any meaningless encounters with my coworkers. If my two sons wanted to enter the business, they would feel the wrath of my wrongdoings. As it turned out, my eldest joined me into the business. There are plenty of coworkers with no filter who would have shared my reputation via a humorous jab, if it existed. I warned him ahead of time on the possibility and how to handle the situation. He tensed up while I was giving him the warning. He was advised to laugh it off and make a joke out of it. I felt blessed that any journeyman who has crossed paths with my son has been a positive experience. As much as I tried to avoid any romantic encounters with my coworkers, I had a moment of weakness. I stumbled upon a man that I perceived would be a great family man. He pursued me heavily. I relented, and it lasted 11 years and produced my second son. You can't totally avoid smack talk when parting ways from a failed relationship. As the woman I am today, my goal is to avoid men in construction. I would say that I have a good rapport with my brothers and sisters in my union. It started out rough and with the silent treatment. It evolved over time when I let my hair down and learned how to use humor to deflect most hairy situations. I even went as far as to make fun of myself to defuse any bombs sent my way. When you lack those skill sets to counteract the dribble from nasty coworkers, I can understand how a woman entering the trade would feel intimidated. I can also understand why a woman would not want to even pick up a trade. I get it why there are only 6% of women in construction. I learned how to focus and turn off distractions around me while working in my trade. It can be overwhelming if you allow the eyes of others to distract you. It is an absolute fact that most any guy on the job site can tell you what the female on the job is working on. Hopefully, that has changed over time. I chose my path based upon my father believing in me and telling me that I could do it. He knew it far ahead of the time that I discovered it. I have been taught in my trade by some of the best journeymen that I know. I have made many friends in this business, while some serve as a brother or father figure to me. I have also since bonded with some good sisters in the business as well. Even my son has snagged some good mentors in his 4 years in this trade as well. If I could go back in a time machine with my current knowledge, I think I would choose the same career path. Perhaps I would not take on so many tasks that even men don't do solo that have given me bulging discs over the years. Just because I can throw a stick of 4-inch rigid on each shoulder doesn't mean I should. I would often work on things solo since my pride got in the way and I didn't want any help. Those are some painful lessons that I cannot erase. I would recommend to any woman coming into construction to incorporate a sense of humor into her personality. May God bless you if you show up on a job and just focus on the downsides to the environment and relentlessly complain. You have to remember that a man sees a woman on the job site, his knee-jerk assumption is that she is here to collect a check and find a husband. Each hard-working woman can evolve that collective thinking over time. Hell, I'm even guilty of thinking that. If you focus, listen, and work hard, people will make the exception for you. It may even change the person's mind to be open to the next trade sister who comes along behind you. I thank you for taking the time to hear about my overview on how I handled my early years in construction. For more details, via the different job site encounters, go check out my book that is entitled Construction Tales, Volume 1, A Woman's Journey to Become an Electrician. It can be found on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and Audible. What do you think about my journey as an apprentice? Is your journey as a woman in the trades the same, or is it different? Would you have been able to do it? Do you think you could endure the job site conditions? I would love to hear your feedback. No matter where you are in the world, thank you for checking out my journey as a journeywoman electrician from New York. You have many options to read, and you chose my specific sequence of letters, jumbled and meshed all together. I wish you a good hump day, Wednesday, and a good week that is left. Asterisks. Names have been changed to protect my co-workers involved in this story. This wraps up Part A and Part B, episodes number 12 and number 13 on how I managed my early days in construction as a woman. Feel free to head back over to the podcast platform of your choice and look for Part A to hear the beginning of the story if you missed it. For more information, head over to our website at www.constructiontales.com. Thanks for listening to us here at Verbally Disastrous, and have a great day. This wraps up another episode on the Verbally Disastrous podcast that can be found on Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube. For more information, head over to www.constructiontales.com. Thank you for listening, and have a great one.